Okay, you participants, what are your questions out there? Or what do you want to know about? Or what did you find interesting in the first session? Or what would you like to get out of this session?
Yeah, Siobhan is an amazing perspective to have, as she has a lot of professional experience in addition to her academic experience. And I know that sitting in on some of her classes, she has just an incredible outlook on the public library world and information science in general.
Siobhan's class last year was my favorite class that I took, her public libraries class. So, you know.
God, that was fun. Thank you. It was fun.
It was so much fun.
It was good to have you. Yeah.
Oh,
somebody else is doing it this year. Somebody from Western who's just done his PhD. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it'll be like, but that's okay. Oh, here, someone has a question.
Yes. Yeah, so Julia, for the application process, you actually don't have to fill it in. So you can fill it out as library and information science, but and I think it was stated in the presentation, is that you are just applying in general to the Master of Information program and showing interest in whatever concentration you are. And at any point you can add, drop, or change your concentration during your studies. So the main thing is that where it comes into play in the application process is in your personal statement and stating what you're interested in, but we're not going to hold you to that. That's not a contract or anything. So feel free to explore other things, but you can fill it in if you want, but it's not a requirement. Great. All right, Shauna would like to eventually be a community librarian. Are municipal government or budget increasing or decreasing for library funding?
Okay, I can take that for sure. Is there a specific community or municipality you have your mind set on? And are you willing to move? Peterborough. Okay. Yeah, so no, municipal budgets are not increasing. And now with COVID, I don't know what the fallout of that is going to be on the municipality, but I think it will be significant. And I think we're going to see cuts across the board there. But that doesn't mean that they still don't need, service professionals like librarians, social workers, teachers, etc. So I wouldn't let that hinder me, but I will give you I don't know your background, I don't know anything about where you're coming from, but I will give you a tip that if you're really interested in community librarianship, you might want to think about going west, as not in Western Ontario, but like west, like to Alberta or Edmonton or Calgary, or even in Regina, because they are doing a lot of that work. Is it a competitive program? What makes it interesting? Is that okay? So Shauna, that's what I've got to say there. Yes, you can do that, but it might not be right at Peterborough, unless you have contacts there or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the next question is, is this a competitive program? What makes a statement of interest stand out? Yes, it's a very competitive program. University of Toronto in general is the best university in Canada and one of the top 20 in the world. Especially now because of the pandemic, there has been a lot more interest in people applying to grad school because there's more consistency and the job market is really, it's competitive to begin with, and now it's very competitive. It really is, but at the same time, as much as you can think about the stats and kind of how many people are admitted each year, really focus on the things you can control, like your personal statement. So what I say for your personal statement is the most important thing, is finding a really good balance between what you can do for the program and the faculty and what the faculty and the program can do for you. So showing that you've done your research, it's just like a cover letter. You know, show that you've gone onto their website and looked at what courses are offered or the backgrounds of some professors. Those are something that are really great. And even if you don't have any experience in that, showing that interest is really important. And showcasing yourself. I come from a sport industry background. Did I think I would be in libraries when I graduated with that degree? Not at all. But I was able to find ways to tie in the information behavior and different aspects of sports and bring that together. So it does take a little bit of finagling, and I definitely would recommend at least 2 other people read your personal statement before you submit it for grammatical things, and also making sure if you do go a little technical or outside of the general space of terminology that you're explaining yourself. But yeah, definitely it's yourself. It's like dating too. You want the program to see who you are and accept you on that. And they read every statement. I had the assistant dean at the time come up to me and say, "Oh, I remember you from your personal statement." So I think, you know, really being yourself is number one. Yeah. So do you have anything to add?
Oh, no, I think you said it all. Yeah, I've never had a piece of writing edited more than my personal statement, that's for sure. Um, yeah, just be you,
Here,
be yourself.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to be authentic, and you also want to demonstrate that you've actually looked closely at the program, that you know what you're applying for. And I don't mean per concentration, but you've thought it through. You don't have to commit to anything, as Sydney was saying, but I mean, let's say, okay, I'm interested in the library and information science stream, but there are some other areas too that I'm interested in. It's just a couple of lines, but it means you're tailoring, you're talking to us and not a generic personal statement that you'd send to any other iSchool. And the other thing is, I hate to say this, but don't open with, unless you can really follow it up with something really unique, do not open with, "I love books and I like reading." Just don't, you know what, don't go there. But if you do go there, really go there then. Like, okay, you do? Tell us about it. Because let me give you a hint. There's a whole area of studies called reading studies. So if you're going to talk about reading, go and have a quick look at some of those, just so you're talking about that. But you know, I like libraries as a kid, and I like books, and I like reading. We all do, for sure. But it's sort of a non-starter.
Yeah, no, that is so true. And I love that both Paige and I knew exactly where you were going.
That's what everyone says.
Yeah, yeah. Allison asks, why did you choose to attend the MI program?
Ooh.
I'm trying to decide which schools to apply to and be interested in hearing how you compared them.
All right,
Paige, go ahead.
Yeah, I can answer that. So I applied to 3 schools. I applied to U of T, UBC, and Western. I'm from Vancouver, so it was mostly between UBC and U of T because they are ranked pretty high. And to me, I really liked the concentration system at U of T. I thought it was cool that you could, like at UBC, for example, if you want to do archival studies alongside LIS, you need to do a double master's degree. That's 3 years. That's a lot of school. But at U of T, at the iSchool, if I was interested, I could take an ARM, like an archival studies course, just as an elective. Like right now, I'm not in museum studies, but I'm taking a museum studies elective, and it's my favorite course right now. I really, really love it. So I really like that flexibility that you have. And also, I thought it would be cool to move out to Toronto and try something new. And yeah, right. I'm definitely I'm happy with my choice.
Yeah. No, I'm a little different. I did a big change, and I kind of just applied to grad school only here, kind of going, why the heck not? We'll see if I get in. If I don't, I wasn't super duper serious in terms of applying to several schools. But yes, and I was going to touch on that, as Paige said, with UBC especially, there is very little flexibility in terms of wanting to try something different. It does extend your studies a lot more. And 3 years is quite a commitment for anyone that is considering the CDP program. I loved it. I would do it again in a heartbeat, but it's a lot. And so if you do kind of even just want to sample something, you don't really want to have to extend your studies just to take that one way. You kind of get rooted in a certain path. Maybe you don't enjoy it. And maybe you leave with a master's. You're kind of like, why did I get this master's if I'm not really passionate about it? I've had a lot of friends that have found their passions in areas they had no idea because they took just one elective course that sounded interesting. They had no idea about it. And changed their concentration and their career path altogether. And they were able to do it in 2 years and do it while exploring even more different topics. So I looked at it for its flexibility, especially. I love the different concentration aspects, and the faculty is, absolutely extraordinary. And they come from an incredible, diverse academic and cultural backgrounds. And then you're also in a culturally diverse city. Toronto is absolutely incredible in terms of public libraries and our communities and values courses. We really studied how unique the Toronto Public Library system is, first of all, for its size, but also the diversity in each branch, which is incredibly cool to really dive into and see how vital libraries are to communities, even in a huge city, how the communities can be so small and brought together. So I really enjoyed that aspect of being able to learn so much, and the lack of limitations in terms of background for students being admitted is also incredible. I learned so much from other students, almost as much as I learned from the faculty members, because of those diverse backgrounds. And listening to your peers as they are discussing their background in archaeology or in history and English, it was something that really added on to my experience as well. And, if it didn't just kind of jog my interest in something else, it really had me take a course in something different and talk to them after and make those networking connections too. Because at the same time, you are networking. You get people that have been in the field for 20 years. You get people that have come out straight out from undergrad. You get people right in the middle. So really making those connections as well is a huge thing that I've really enjoyed, and making those connections all over the place in different concentrations really made it an incredible experience. And it didn't really hit me until I started my studies here, how amazing that diversity is. So I talk a lot. Let's see. So for Megan, yeah. So in the personal statement, should we try to be broad and talk about the MI program? If you are going to choose LIS, talk about it. Definitely don't be incredibly general. Even finding different aspects that are prominent in today's world. Relating it to what's going on today with digital, with information science. I know misinformation is a really big thing that has been discussed, and there's a lot to do. So make it personal. It is a statement of intent that is about you. So if you do know what you want to do concentration-wise right now, go for it. But try not to be too broad, as Siobhan said. You don't want it to seem like you've copied and pasted it to several grad schools, because that will not be interesting for our admissions committee as they read it. Let's see.
Co-op and placement.
Oh boy, co-op.
I can't speak to co-op because I haven't done it, but I'm currently doing a practicum placement right now. So the difference between co-op and practicum is that you do free labor for practicum. You do not get paid for your efforts, unfortunately, but you do get a course credit. And for what it's worth, I'm doing my practicum entirely remotely this semester, but it's been a really cool experience. It's been a very positive experience. I really like where I'm working right now. I have an awesome supervisor that I communicate with a lot. The other people I've talked to in my practicum course have pretty varying experiences with it, I guess. Some of them kind of have an end goal, and basically they just work on their own time. And like at the end of the semester, it's like, okay, like give us the product. But for me, I kind of have set hours that I work every week, which really works for me. I will say, if placement continues to be online, it definitely favors people with more tech skills, I would say. I feel like I'm not necessarily using my library science knowledge that I've gained, but more I'm kind of diving into a few more techie aspects, which is really good because I'm learning how to use some of these things. Like I made like little design icons on a computer. I've never done that in my life before. But yeah, if you decide not to do co-op, and I've heard co-op for LIS, yeah, as Siobhan said in the chat, isn't like really a thing. It's pretty hard to find. I'd say Practicum is a nice way to get some practical working experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Practicum's great. There's Practicums in during the winter and fall terms, which is 45 hours. And then during the summer, there's also the Practicum option, which is 105 hours as it's
mine is 105 hours right now for the fall term.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, there's also been changes made, obviously, since COVID. And, you know, as much as there is the problems of not being able to be in person and sit in a classroom, that also leads to a lot of opportunities to do things that are, you know, we wouldn't have been possible had we been in person. Yeah, I agree with the technical aspect. That is something that, you know, I know some people might be adverse to it, but it is so, so necessary now. I know for me, I took a couple of classes on Khan Academy in HTML and CSS over the summer. It's what helped me land my job. And now I am using those skills to move our website onto a platform that is AODA compliant. So it is these really, really important things that aren't as hard as they seem, because I know I was incredibly intimidated with things like technology, and I kicked myself for not just taking a risk and trying it while I was in grad school, where if you fail or if it's a problem and you don't like it, it's fine, you move on. And I found that it's really helped me in my career. Siobhan, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that Shauna is a really excellent question, and I think others want to listen up to that. Employers looking for librarians want technical competence and confidence. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be a programmer, but it doesn't hurt to have some experience doing that or being in a context to learn some of that, because they're looking for people who are not afraid of technology. And it's just, and the environment is just getting more and more automated, and you can't not go there. So, but there are courses I recommend people take. I often say take the database course. That's just like key, because it's also around information organization and classification and taxonomies, which is what we do. And you know, I had a librarian and a manager of over at the University of Toronto Libraries, and she really is committed to the idea of taking a sort of a rudimentary programming course. So you don't, and also as Sydney, like, you can take some with us, but you can also take these in other contexts, workshops or, hackathons or whatever these other places where you can build some of those skills, but you want to be building them, and don't be afraid of them. You didn't come into this probably to be a programmer. You didn't come in to be a database designer, but you do want to know something about that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. So, Sean, I think we did kind of cover the second part of your question about requiring the technical or computer programming courses. But for the full-time, it is a 2-year program. You can switch from full-time to part-time. No matter what, the important thing is you will be paying the exact same amount as someone who did 2 years of full-time, as opposed to someone that did take the whole 5.5 years to complete the program. So just because you're taking it part-time, there will be a balance of degree fee at the end. You will end up paying the exact same amount. So you can take up to 5.5 years part-time.
Okay, so now I don't want everyone getting bent out of shape. So Terry and Paige. Paige, yes. You're saying you can't string 2 numbers?
Oh, yeah, I can.
And see how you're doing now? Yeah, no, I don't want people to think, oh my God, I didn't do math, I should have done calculus, whatever. No, we're not
I barely passed pre-calc in high school.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
it's
what
not
we're talking about is it's an ability to design basically and to understand how information is organized at the back end. So when you just look at a computer or a library catalog, right now you probably don't have a clue actually about how it runs together. So these are the things you're learning if you do a database course. It's just, if you do not have to be good at math, you don't, no, you just have to, you have to be interested and curious.
Yes.
And not afraid.
Yes, absolutely. Try it. Try it. The worst you can do is find out you don't like it or you're not good at it.
And then you just ask questions.
Yeah.
That's how I get by.
Exactly. Alyssa asked specifically for me, what was my experience like as an international student? So being an American is very interesting because you pass off as a Canadian in a lot of different aspects, and especially for me in terms of my accent. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, so I'm from a northern part of the States. I also am a huge hockey fan, so I've been exposed to Canadian culture since I was young. But it's very fascinating in terms of being an American, as you are this international where you're paying international fees. However, you are not qualified for international scholarships, for example. So I found overall it was an incredibly easy adjustment. I came in after a year and a half after graduating undergrad, being scared. I didn't know how to make friends. I was in a lot of situations where friends were kind of thrust upon me. You will find friends. Like it is so great because especially you're taking the core courses, you tend to take them in your first year. You don't have to. It just tends to happen. So you make a lot of your friends there. But it's just the immigration things are complicated and weird. I'm trying to double check I can come back to Canada after I go home for the holidays. So overall, that's the hardest part of it. Everything else is really easy, and it gives you a different perspective, because I know a lot of people ask me an American perspective on things. And while I'm not an expert and can only give my perspective, it still is a great opportunity to kind of bring in another layer of diversity, even if we do seem very similar in terms of our cultures. Siobhan, go ahead.
Yeah, although I do have kind of an interesting story. We have a number of faculty, quite a few actually, who are Americans. And one of them described, well, there's a bunch of interesting stories. One of them said, yeah, like when you first get here, everything looks exactly the same. Like everything's fine and it's all sort of the same. And then as time goes on, you realize, no, it's not really the same at all. It's sort of a bizarro world because the politics are different here. The sort of it's just a different culture, national culture, right? So but she said that on the surface it looks the same, it's identical, and then you go, oh my god, I'm in bizarro world. Like, and the other thing I've heard, which I don't want to take away from anyone's time, but I thought this was hilarious, if you're an American, anyone out there, is that this friends of mine, then they were here and they were going to buy and spend a lot of money on some appliances. They just moved up here. They're at the university, and I guess they went into the local Sears or whatever they went into with all this money in their pocket, or they have a lot of money to spend, and they went up to the guy. They're trying to figure out amongst all these fridges, and they see someone with a tag, and they go, can you help us? And he goes, you know what, that's like John, and he's on his lunch right now, but if you come back in an hour, he'll be able to help you. And they were just like, what? Like, we have money to spend and no one wants it. Like, that's what they think it's like. So, yeah.
I didn't realize how socialist it was until I just got my first paycheck and realized how much money had been taken out for taxes. And so that's been a very interesting thing where I went, like, because I didn't realize how socialist in comparison Canada is until I saw that and went, oh, okay, but I get free healthcare. So there's that. So I'll take it.
The trade-off.
And you know what? Look at this, Allison. Allison is from Los Angeles, California, and Allison, we have faculty from Los Angeles, California.
Oh yeah.
So you won't be alone.
Yeah, Jenna went to UC. But yeah. Did either of you do talent? I did not. Talent is very hard to come by.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah. So basically, for those of you who, and me also did not, for those of you who don't know, the talent program is a guaranteed 2-year position in a University of Toronto library. And there were 20 in my first year, and 1 or 2, I think, came along throughout the summer. But in addition to the talent program, there are GSLA positions where you're a graduate student library assistant, which I believe, Paige, you were?
No, I was just a regular
You were
student
just
library assistant. There's also work study, which I do
Yeah.
right now. So I got let go from my SLA position due to COVID. So right now I work as a research assistant in an entirely different department. I do it for the history department. But that now I'm trying to kind of pivot from my experience that I'm getting as a research assistant. I'm trying to kind of make that work in the library field. I'm trying to look for jobs that combine this, like I'm a Holocaust, I research the Holocaust, so I'm taking a little pivot into like the Holocaust Education Center and seeing, and jobs like that, and seeing how my experience can kind of fit into that. So even if you can't get a library job, and if you can't, don't get down on yourself, especially nowadays. It's a tough time to get a job. You can pivot your experience that you do have with whatever job you can get, and you can still make your way back into the field. And any experience is valuable experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. I found that for me in my jobs hunt and I also have the perspective of both the Master of Information and Museum Studies. I leaned heavily on my MI skills that I could then apply to a variety of different positions. And so that was one of, in talking to my coworkers, actually one of my coworkers did go to the I school back and graduated in 2010. And so it's like, obviously they keep bringing in people from the Faculty of Information because those skills are so relevant and useful in really any perspective. So especially for my Americans out there, very few people know what Western is or UBC in terms of the fact that those are cities that they are not aware of. Some people don't even realize that Ontario is a thing. It's just Toronto. So when I was asked what province Toronto is in, that was fun. So I would say, especially for you guys, at least people know what Toronto is. If you can say it's the Harvard of Canada, people get it, and that's helpful. So especially if you do want to go back to the States, you're ALA accredited and people know what Toronto is. So those are what's very, very beneficial. And then in Canada too, it has an incredible reputation as well. So I would say that is definitely one of the perks of going here. Yeah, so Shauna, is everyone doing all their courses online at the moment?
Online courses.
Yes, it was just announced this week or decided upon by the faculty that the winter semester will be online. So that will give you an idea of how not in advance these things are planned. So I know there's been a few questions of saying, what's 2021 going to look like? You're going to have to probably ask us in August 2021 at this point. If we had a crystal ball, I would be stealing it. But unfortunately, we just have no clue. And the university is getting news kind of, maybe a month in advance. So yeah, I think that it is going to change the program and the way that it's delivered. That doesn't mean, and I don't work for the ISOL anymore, so I cannot be in trouble for this. This does not mean that there are going to be online classes, because we really pride ourselves about the in-person aspect, and especially like just being on campus and being in a classroom. We obviously now know we can teach online, but it's not the preference of the majority of faculty members and of our students. I know that was something that was very difficult for people to grasp. But yeah, overall, I think just, we all just kind of have to take it as it comes. Siobhan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think what's important to remember is I think it's San Jose has a completely online program. They designed it that way. That's what it's about. We have not designed this degree, and our faculty is not online per se. So what we're doing right now is actually just a COVID imperative. It's because of COVID. So Yeah, and as long as it just depends on what public health says and everything. So it's an interim solution. I just think it's important to realize that. Yeah, I don't know when. Do you guys know when the decisions are find out when people are accepted? Sooner than later, I think.
Yeah, so they're not going to begin reviewing applications until mid-December. So there are people submitting their applications on October 1st. And it's like, take your time. You've got time. It's on a rolling basis, but they're not, reviewing the moment they're submitted. So take your time. You still have a few more weeks before they'll really, really start diving into them.
I submitted mine the end of January, but I heard back very quickly. I heard back like mid-February.
Jealous. I
was
heard back in
spicy.
July from museum.
Yeah,
studies, but...
I've heard that as well. I think I believe it's January 31st if you want to be
September.
considered for scholarships, and then it's later. I think it's March 31st otherwise.
Yeah, so it's January 31st to be considered for entrance awards, which you should have an A- average in order to be considered for those. If you are around there, still go ahead. You might as well. Then you don't have to worry about it. And then rolling admission. March 31st for the submission of your application if you are not going for that early deadline. And then April 15th for all of your supporting documents. So January 31st, application and all of your supporting documents, including your references. So that's when you can start to kind of get on your references if they have not submitted by the end of January. So yeah, we have no January intake. It's only September. That's not going to change. I know a lot of people ask, and we want to start the process. We want it to be really unified, so we do it on a one intake a year basis. Scholarships for U.S. students. So I didn't do a lot of research, and I'm kicking myself now because I started to look at some of the ones on the iSchool page to look at those. And I didn't do any just outside research. So I don't know any off the top of my head, which I kick myself for. So do your research, because we were talking to our careers officers, and they were saying that if you kind of budget it down to how much time you do research and submitting an application for a scholarship, you could basically be making like $75 an hour based on how much the scholarship would be and how much it's going towards your tuition. So really do put in that effort to look into it, especially for Americans. You have to click on every single one, even if they say that they're international, because they will end up kind of putting in like the line once you click on the page, not Americans. So just before you start applying for them, really read those, the fine print. If you get accepted into the program, what is the deadline to accept or decline the offer? You get a month after you get your acceptance. So you can ask for a little more time if you're waiting on hearing from another school, or if there's another decision that you are waiting on. Reach out to admissions.ischool@utoronto.ca, and we can give you a little more time. But yeah, you have a month. Yeah, you're welcome. Are there any questions I have missed? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Good, yeah. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Now that I'm like not working at the iSchool, I really have to dig in my brain to.
I know. Ooh, I'll talk about classwork, I guess, if anyone wants to hear it. So something that I personally love about this program is that there's a lot of group work, and you may hear that and be like, oh God, no, please, no group work. But I have found that it has been by far like the best, the way that I have learned the most in this program. As Sydney said before, everyone comes from very diverse backgrounds. Like I think of like the friends that I've made like from group projects, like one is one had like worked in nonprofits, like one majored in math, one did anthropology. Like I came from a history background, and being able to put all of that different expertise together in a project, I find just really makes you think outside of your comfort zone. You don't quite have like just an echo chamber of everyone with the same perspectives. And it's also a terrific way to make friends. My roommate that I live with now, I literally met her working. We did a group project together. We like randomly put in a group together. So don't be afraid by the group work because it's a lot of fun and people do their work. I haven't had a bad group experience yet, and everything, even doing online group work. Most of my classes have had group work assigned to them, and it's been a little trickier for communication, but it's still worked out really well. So embrace the group work. That's all I have to say about
And
that.
there's a pedagogical purpose to the group work, just so you know that. And it's because it's a professional program. What we're trying to do is get you ready for that. And in the workforce and workplace broadly now, a lot of it's collaborative and in groups. So this also gives you material for your interviews, because you can actually talk about where did you take a leadership role, or were you in a situation where somebody was difficult to work with, or whatever. So it provides a lot of stuff, including all the social stuff too, which is great. And in the online environment, turns out like being in groups and breakout sessions has been key for student mental health and feeling connected and stuff like that.
Yeah, I highly recommend, honestly, save your syllabi or know where to find them on the website, because I know I've actually gone back to my syllabi to look and go, when have I used XYZ? And that was something especially, so my partner was in the museum studies program, and when he was applying for jobs, he would look at the job description and go, well, I didn't really 100% do that. I only did like 20% in a group project, but you still learn from it in a group project. So even if you weren't the person doing every bit of research or every bit of that one project, you still were a part of it. So as much as I know some people might kind of, and especially in terms of job hunting, kind of go, oh, I might not have this experience, but I'm going to lie about it. But also don't diminish the experiences you actually have, even if it wasn't just a 100% individual project. You know, you learn so much, even just from watching other people do it or discussing it with them. So I would definitely kind of hold on to your syllabi. And then, you know, especially when you are looking at it, you might not even realize, oh, I did some technical work that I completely forgot about in my first year. So really hold on to that.
I'm a huge people person. I love people. I love talking to people. It's why I want to be a librarian. I think LIS is a great concentration, because the fact is, if you love customer service, if you love collaborating with people, if you love interacting with others, librarianship isn't all just sitting like in a back room looking at books.
That's archives.
It's exactly, that's what the archives people do. And being able to interact with people is a really important skill for librarianship, I think.
Yeah, Siobhan.
I think Paige
Yes.
is absolutely right about that, but there's another half. What does make the profession so great is that it appeals to all kinds of people, extroverted and really people who want to be out there and with people and highly social and everything. But also there's a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done that is that appeals to more introverted people, or people who are more cerebral in their approach, especially around organization and classification. So there's a place for, you know, there's for both kinds of people. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I would definitely say the other concentrations, just because we are very, you know, there do tend to be a lot of people person, whatever. So the other concentrations also have a fair amount of group work as well. Archives, I didn't find as much as that was a joke. At the same time, it is kind of more of a behind the scenes things, like, you know, archivists can be forward facing, but especially compared to LIS and ARM, which they get compared and brought together constantly. LIS is a lot more forward facing, but even user experience design is massive in group work. And probably one of the ones that really brought it together, I brought up the user experience in galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. And that course not only had you working with a lot of different people, but it had you working with a stakeholder in an institution in the Greater Toronto area. So we worked with the Aga Khan Museum and reorganizing their lobby. And that's something you might not even think is user experience. And there were other places that worked with websites and did usability tests on the website. Does it make sense to the user? So especially user experience design, even if they're not necessarily interacting with the user on a daily basis, they're thinking, what does the user need? What does the user want? Does this make sense? So a lot of the different, there's a lot of people aspect. It's definitely more of like a sociological program, and that's kind of what our Bachelor of Information is trying to make. It's kind of a nice stepping stone into the Master of Information, where you are really thinking about the people behind it and the perspective of that user. So I would definitely find that there is a lot of forward facing in LIS, but the other concentrations also have that as well. I like how I'm an advertisement for the other concentrations.
Yeah, we need to get everyone into LIS.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so forward facing right now, and then I want to hide in a corner after this.
No, yeah, you know what? Remember, go back, Shauna, to what we were talking about with the personal statement. You just have to be authentically yourself. That is what matters. Okay, so and I think everybody's a bit of something, but some of us tend towards more if it's a continuum of introverted and extroverted, some of us are more at one end or the other, but I mean, everyone at different times in their life finds themselves in different places. It's about who you are, so don't worry about that. You have to and this goes for going forward, period. You just have to be authentic and true to yourself. So when you're applying, and let's go back to that personal statement, just take a time to sit back and write down your first ideas, but then sit back and go, is there anything deeper than this that I want to say, or, you want to think about? And the more authentic you are, the better it's going to go.
Right. Yeah, no problem.
Ooh, I can also talk about social clubs in the iSchool. So there's lots of different clubs that you can join. Every year there's Clubs Day. This year it was an online Clubs Day, but usually it's in person. COVID, when it's not a thing. So there's lots of, I imagine this would be also a great way to gain experience in different fields. There's a club for people who are interested in academic libraries, people who are interested in film archival things. There's an iSchool book club. There's my personal favorite club that I'm currently co-president of, and Sydney ran last year, the iSchool Fiber Arts Club, for people who like things like knitting, embroidery, cross stitch. So those are all great ways to meet people who might have similar professional interests as you, or personal interests. And getting involved with leadership in these clubs can be a great way to gain some different skills. For example, I had an interview this week, a programming position, and they asked me in the interview, they're how do you approach Zoom, programming over Zoom? And I was able to say, oh, well, I run a club at U of T right now over Zoom. These are the things that we do for Zoom programming. These are some problems we faced. This is how we deal with them. And I think that can be applied all over the board. There's lots of things that you can learn and you can gain from getting involved in a club, and I highly recommend it. And another nice way to meet people from across concentrations, like last year when I went to Fiber Arts Club, I met a lot of museum studies people who I probably wouldn't have had any classes
Hi,
with
everyone.
otherwise.
Sorry, I'm just going to hop in here. My name is Sydney. I am actually a recent alum of the program as of June. My concentration was LIS for the MI program.
Stop.
I also did the museum studies program, so I'm one of those crazy people that did the CDP program. I apologize. I'm between like 4 different sessions. So if you do have a question specifically for me, please feel free to type it into the chat. I also just recently got a job at Robin School of Business here at the University of Toronto as a registrar administrative assistant. So I can give some perspective on the job hunt and finding your career. So I'm happy to answer those questions as well.
Sydney, stop. You are here with LIS. Are the LIS people still here with us?
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Oh man, I have way too many tabs open. I am so sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. But you couldn't even hear us, I don't think.
No, I couldn't. I turned the volume down. I have too many tabs open. I am so sorry.
No, don't worry.
Oh man.
That's fine. Yeah,
you do have the pitch down to a T.
Yeah, thanks guys for dealing with me.
Where are you supposed to be?
So I was in the student experience group, as I'm supposed to be there, as well as I am supervising ARM, and I'm actually also still in the admissions.
Holy shnikey.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Terry.
well, if you need to go, stay, whatever. So for the rest of you here, I'm just looking, we've heard from, there's like 14 people in the room. I'm just seeing if there's anybody that, like Alicia, I think you're from the States. Allison, Terry, Julia, here's a new chat. For class schedules, I was able to make my own schedule. Oh, yeah. Okay, so now you know that the website has a pile of information, but also just contact, well, there's a generic form, but they do look at those every day, probably many times a day. And also just contact Andrea or any of the people that you've been introduced to today. Like just reach out with questions. And also the more administrative stuff, it's good to talk to student there. Thank you, Sydney. Contact admissions because they know everything about deadlines and, you know, the sort of bits and bobs of the business.
I also am happy to answer questions, especially for my Americans. That's my email.
How many people are American here in the room? 3?
I think
like,
we had
not Sydney, but
yeah.
You don't.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So fantastic. I know it's a weird way to wade into it, and immigration is a whole other thing in itself. So, but yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I am happy to answer any questions.
Well, it seems like people have got what they want. One new chat. Great. Let's see.
Thanks,
you.
Terry.
Oh, you're welcome, Terry.
I'm glad you find it informative and helpful.
Hey, Terry, why do you have a number 2? Are there 2 Terrys?
They left and came back due to technical issues. BB Collab has been especially troublesome today. I would be on one and the audio just cut out completely. So that's been super fun.
BB Collab is probably my least favorite video chat platform. I hate to say it, I'm a Zoom girl through and through.
It's not the best.
Really?
Though, guys, bonus of attending U of T, you get a free pro Zoom account. So you can be the one to host Zoom calls for all of your friends and family.
Oh, yes.
It's great.
Is that through the student fund? Can I get that?
Yeah, I imagine.
Okay. No, because sometimes you guys get stuff and we don't get it, but
I figured because you log in with your U of T email, you log into Zoom through that. And it was pro.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
There's lots of mature
Oh,
students, Shauna.
Shauna.
So many
Well, and those are
people.
the best students usually. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they're
honestly, I wish
usually,
I
you know what? I've
took
had
more
so many
time.
mature students coming and say, yeah, say to me, oh my God, I've been out of school for, well, sometimes when someone says 5 or 6 years, I'm like, that's not exactly mature. Maybe this is your experience, but I mean, 10 years, 15 years. Yeah, and you bring a lot to the table if you've been out of school and you haven't gone straight through because you have other life experience, and you will have no problem with the academics. Usually I found mature students have a focus that's really, really strong, and they produce great work, and they're a great addition to a class. So mature students with arms open. In fact, as a historical fact, the average age of people entering library and information science programs, or what used to be called library schools, right up until maybe the mid 90s, was 33. Because people went somewhere else, they did other things, and that's why it's usually an eclectic mix of people. Oh, great. Good.
Yeah, no, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
Great. It's been so nice to get to know everybody and hear from you, especially my American friends. It's always nice to see the Americans.
Okay, well, thank you, Sydney and Paige, too.
Yeah, no, thanks,
Awesome.
Siobhan. So fun to come here and chat.
Really good. Indeed. Well, it's 2:50. One new chat. Okay, so I'm gonna check out, but you know where to find me, you know where to find these guys. Just phone up anyone's name, and we're very approachable. Great.